The friendly number one. Number one lived in the land of numbers. He was the friendliest of all the numbers. Whenever he walked down the street, he would smile and wave. Everybody loved number one, except for King 10. King 10 was jealous, and he didn't like that number one was more popular than he was. He decided to hold a competition between all the numbers. The loser would have to leave the land of numbers forever. The rules were simple. The king hid decimal points throughout the kingdom. Each number had a bag to collect as many decimal points as they could find. Whoever brought the most back by sundown would win. Whoever brought the least would have to leave. King 10 wanted to make sure that number one would lose, so he gave him a bag with a hole in it. He also gave all the other numbers a map to where the decimal points were hidden. At sunrise, the contest began. Number one went all around the kingdom looking for the decimal points. He was friendly to everyone that he met along the way. Still, he could not find a decimal point anywhere. He came upon the farm of old number 100 and said, "Hello." "Hello," said old number 100. "You've got a hole in your bag. Let me mend it." "I hadn't noticed," said number one. "Thank you." Old number 100 sewed a patch onto the bag, and number one was on his way. By sunset, number one hadn't found a single decimal point. He went back to the kingdom to face the king. "It's time for the final count," said King 10. Number 5 had not come back. He had used his map and collected so many decimals that his bag became too heavy to carry back in time. Number 4 and number 3 had fought over the same decimal point. They argued over who should have it for so long that neither of them won. Number 2 had gone searching for the only other decimal point left on the map, which was on number 100's farm. Since number 2 was not friendly and did not say hello, old number 100 didn't let him search his land. Number 1 started to say that he had not found any decimals when the king noticed his bag. "You have brought back a decimal point," said King 10. "That makes you the winner." Old number 100 had used the decimal point to fix the hole in number 1's bag. Even though King 10 cheated, number 1's friendly and fair play had won the competition. The king decided that no one should have to leave the land of numbers. He realized that friendliness should be rewarded and not punished, and he threw a great party in number 1's honor. From that day on, the friendly number 1 was known as the greatest number of all. The mean number 2. Number 2 was always by himself. He didn't like being around other numbers. He lived in the land of numbers and spent his days picking berries in the arithmetic fields. He picked the rarest berry of all, the plumberry. He made plumberry pies and plumberry cakes, and he never shared with anyone. One day he came upon the number 7. Number 7 was very clumsy, and he had fallen and hurt himself. "Will you help me until I get better?" asked number 7. "I suppose so," said number 2 angrily. He let number 7 sleep in his home. He brought him water and gave him food, but he never let number 7 have a plumberry. After a few days, number 7 started to get better. Number 2 told him that he would have to work the plumberry fields to repay him. They worked together all day picking plumberries. Number 2 picked the berries and number 7 held the baskets. Now that he could use both hands, number 2 could pick twice as many berries as before, and twice as fast. "He's still not getting any of my plumberries," thought number 2. Next, they carried the baskets back from the fields. With 2 of them carrying the baskets, they got it done twice as fast. "He's still not getting any plumberries," thought number 2. Number 2 washed half of the plumberries while number 7 washed the other half. They each dried off the berries with a dry cloth. It was the fastest that number 2 had ever finished his work for the day. "He's still not getting any plumberries," thought number 2. But just as they were ready to be eaten, a wild plus sign came running by and grabbed a basket of berries. "Catch him!" yelled number 2. They both went running after the hungry plus sign. The plus sign ran down a long row of plumberry trees and sat in the center. "I have a plan," said number 7. "You go get the bigger basket you have and wait at the other end of this row of plumberry trees. I'll chase the plus sign towards you. I'll tell you when it's the right time, and you can jump out and catch it." I suppose so," said the mean number 2. Number 7 ran after the plus sign. When they were almost at the end of the trees, he yelled, "Now!" Number 2 jumped out and trapped the plus sign with the biggest basket he could find. He was very happy to have his plumberries back. "I could not have done this without you," said number 2. That night he made plumberry tarts and plumberry cookies and plumberry icing, and he shared them with number 7. Number 2 realized that working together means you get more done. From that day on, the rule of number 2 was that the smartest and safest way to do things is with a friend. The fantastic number 3. Number 3 lived in the land of numbers. He was a gardener. In fact, he was the greatest gardener there was. When his garden was in bloom, all the other numbers came to see his flowers and plants. It was the finest garden around. One day, King 10 got word of the fantastic garden. He went to see it for himself. "I must have a flower as beautiful as these," he said. "Number 3, I want you to grow me a flower in the royal garden. Make it the greatest I've ever seen, and I'll show it off to all the numbers in 1 month." Number 3 was very nervous. He would have to find the best seed in the entire land to grow a flower so amazing. Number 3 got started looking right away. He traveled to the top of Addition Mountain and found a rare white seed. He swam through the 5 lakes and found a shiny green seed on the other side. And at the top of the Thousand Fires volcano, he found a bright orange seed. He brought all 3 to the king's garden. He had only 2 weeks to make a beautiful plant grow. First, he planted the white seed. He watered it and made sure it had good soil to grow in. A day later, a fox came by and dug up the seed. It tasted bitter, and he spit it out in the garden. When number 3 saw that the seed had been taken, he got even more nervous. He planted the green seed right away to make sure that the king would have a beautiful flower. He watered the green seed and made sure that it had plenty of good soil. The next day, a rabbit came by and dug up the seed. It tasted sour, and he spit it out in the garden. When number 3 saw that the seed had been taken, he was very worried. He planted the bright orange seed right away so that the king would have a beautiful flower. He watered the seed and made sure that it had plenty of good soil. This time, he built a fence around the garden so that no animals could get inside. When the day finally came for the king to show off his garden, number 3 was more nervous than ever. "What if it didn't grow?" he thought. When he arrived, he saw that 3 beautiful flowers had grown. There was a tall, thin white flower, a large, colorful green flower, and a beautiful orange flower. The king and the rest of the numbers had never seen such amazing flowers. "I asked you for a beautiful flower, and without me even asking, you grew 3, he said happily. And from that day on, it was decreed that all good things should come in 3s. The brave number 4. Number 4 lived in the land of numbers. He wasn't afraid of anything. He wasn't afraid of the dark. He wasn't afraid of thunder. He wasn't even afraid of wild animals. It's been said that he even rode a wild animal during a thunderstorm one night. One day, number 6 asked him if he would help her find her missing pet. "Of course I will," said number 4. "He ran away into the forest of forgotten numbers," she said, "and nobody else is brave enough to go in after him." "I'm not scared of anything," he said. "I'll find your pet and bring him back." Number 4 walked into the forest of forgotten numbers while all the other numbers watched. He went deeper and deeper into the forest until he could barely see anything at all. There were spooky noises all around him, but they did not scare him. He asked an owl up in the tree, "Have you seen my friend's pet?" "It ran into that cave over there, but it's much too scary for you to go inside," said the owl. The brave number 4 walked right into the cave and looked around. He asked a snake on the ground, "Have you seen my friend's pet?" The snake was surprised that number 4 was not scared of him. "He ran down that tunnel, but a monster lives down there, and surely you're too scared to follow," said the snake. The brave number 4 walked right down the tunnel and found number 6 pet equal sign sitting by a warm fire. He picked up the equal sign and started to walk out when a great big hairy beast stopped him. "I'm a terrible monster," it said.
tremble with fear."
"Sorry," said number 4, "but you don't scare me." The monster was shocked.
"Well, can I at least keep playing with your pet?"
It asked. "This is my friend's pet, and she's looking for it," said number 4. He brought back the equal sign through the tunnel, through the cave, and out through the forest. All the numbers cheered when they saw him return. "You saved him," said number 6. "How can I ever thank you?" "It was nothing. Everyone is afraid of something. It's just different for different numbers," said number 4. "I'm so happy I could kiss you," said number 6. And that was the first time that number 4 knew what it was like to be scared. The famous number 5. Number 5 lived in the land of numbers. He was a very famous actor. All over the world, everyone had seen number 5 act. Everywhere he went, people shouted, "There goes number 5, the most famous actor in the world!" He had played a wanderer in the desert. He had played a warrior in a great battle. He had even played a monster so scary that some of the other numbers fainted. One day, King 10 asked him to perform a brand new play for the royal court. "A brand new play," he thought. "I'll come up with something wonderful. After all, I'm the famous number 5. On the day of his play, all the numbers had come to see him perform. When the curtains rose, he came out dressed as a doctor and began acting. "I've seen you act as a doctor before," said number 1. "This is not a new play." Number 5 went backstage and changed his costume. He came out dressed as an astronaut and began acting again. "I've seen you act as an astronaut before," said number 9. "This is not a new play." Number 5 went backstage and changed costumes. He came out dressed as a prince and began acting again. "I've seen you act as a prince twice before," said number 3. "This is definitely not a new play." Number 5 went backstage and began to get sad. Everybody had watched him act so many times that they had seen all his plays. He walked onto the stage without any costume at all and began acting like himself because he had no characters left to play. No one said a word. When he was done, the audience cheered louder than they ever had before. King 10 cheered the loudest. "Of all the times we've seen you, we liked you best of all tonight," they said. The famous number 5 made them happy by being himself, and he had never been more proud. The Crafty Number 6. Number 6 lived in the land of numbers. She could build anything. She built a basket that helped number 2 pick berries. She built skis for number 5. She even built a building for number 8 to turn into a library. One day, King 10 heard of her great skill at building things. He came down to her workshop and saw what she had done. "You are the finest carpenter I've ever seen," he said. "I want you to build me a toy that makes noise," he said. She got started working right away. She collected needles from pine trees. When they spun around inside her toy, they made a clicking noise. The next day, she brought the toy to the king, and he was very pleased. "Wonderful," he said. "Now I want you to make me a toy that can fly." She got started working right away. She used the leaves from the great 99 tree to make wings for the toy. She built it out of a hollow tree to make it light. The next day she brought it to the king, and he was pleased. "Wonderful," he said. "Now I want you to build me a toy that can never be broken." She got started working right away. She found the strongest metal ever inside the rock behind a waterfall. She built a toy so strong that it could be dropped from the sky, crushed by a boulder, or thrown in the ocean, and it would still not break. The next day she brought it to the king. He was pleased, but once again he wanted more. "Build me a toy that is more fun than all of these combined," he said. Number 6 thought long and hard, and then she went back to her workshop. The next day she arrived at the castle with a box. She opened it up and handed the king a small toy. "This is the greatest toy that I have ever created." As you can see, even a child could use it, and it is so much fun that only a fool would grow tired of playing with it. The king was confused. But he did not say so out loud. "Thank you," he said. "It's magnificent." Number 6 went back to building things that she liked. The king stopped asking her to build him new toys. He spent days trying to guess how his new toy worked. Number 6 was sure that he would never figure it out. The greatest toy she'd ever built was nothing more than a small block of wood, which would keep his imagination playing forever. The Clumsy Number 7. In the land of numbers, there was no one clumsier than Number 7. He fell down when he walked down the street. He was always dropping things. One time he tried to climb a tree, and he looked more like the number 8 than the number 7 by the time he was done. All the other numbers made fun of him for being so clumsy. One day King 10 decided that he would hold a talent show. All the numbers were welcome to perform. Number 7 knew that if he won the talent show, nobody would see him as clumsy anymore. He decided that for his act, he would ride a unicycle across a tightrope while juggling beach balls. And he would do it over a small pool filled with an alligator. It was the most difficult act that anyone had ever heard of. Some of the other numbers started writing him get well cards right away. Number 7 practiced all day for a week. He had to get it perfect if he was going to impress everyone. The problem was, he wasn't very good. He tried riding across a really thick rope at first, but that was too hard for him. He juggled oranges instead of beach balls, but they kept falling. He didn't want to practice with a live alligator, so he used an inflatable one instead. On the night of the competition, the other numbers put on a great show. Number 4 sang a beautiful song. Number 1 did a card trick that fooled everyone in the audience. Number 3 put on a magnificent play. When it was his turn, Number 7 was nervous. "Here goes nothing," he said. For a moment, he was doing great. He juggled the beach balls and rode along the tightrope. Even the alligator was impressed. Then, he lost his balance. He dropped the beach balls and started to fall with his unicycle. When he fell, the beach balls went flying and he splashed straight into the water. The alligator bounced out of the water and onto the unicycle and started pedaling. Then, the beach balls dropped right into Number 7's hand. It was the greatest act that the king had ever seen, and the crowd roared. There was no question that Number 7 had won the talent show, and everyone realized they were seeing him all wrong. He was never called Clumsy Number 7 again, but they did call him Lucky. The Forgetful Number 8. Number 8 lived in the land of numbers. He worked every day at the library. He was always forgetting things. When the other numbers asked him where a book was, he could never remember. "Never mind, I'll find it by myself," they would say. On his way home, he was always too busy looking at the trees and the stream to remember where he was going. It once took him 3 hours to find his house. Sometimes he forgot how to brush his teeth. Sometimes he forgot how to make a sandwich. Sometimes he even forgot how to wear a hat. One morning, Number 5 came into the library with a large gold book. "I don't remember the last time I saw a gold book," said Number 8. "This is a very special book," said Number 5. "I found it while digging in the land of words. You must not lose it. I'll be back to check on it tomorrow." Number 8 saw that the gold book was very important. "Oh no," he said. "Where can I keep this special book without forgetting it?" He put it inside his desk, but then he thought, "No, I lose things in there all the time." He put it between a silver book and a bronze book, but then he thought, "No, I can never find those books when somebody asks where they are." He put it in a room for special books, but then he thought, "That's a bad idea. I forget about that room all the time." He had run out of ideas. "I'll put it on the very top row of the tallest bookshelf that I have," he finally decided. After he put the book on the top row of the tallest bookshelf, he started to climb down the ladder he was using. Halfway down, he stumbled and fell, bumping his head. "Ow," he said. He couldn't remember what he was doing on the ladder, but he was sure that it wasn't worth the bump on his head. The next morning, Number 5 came into the library. "I'm here to see my special gold book," said Number 5. Number 8 looked around the library. He couldn't see a gold book anywhere because it was on the top row of the tallest bookshelf. Where could the gold book be? He thought to himself. He started to scratch his head. Ow! He yelled when he scratched the bump on his head. That's where it is. I bumped my head when I put your gold book away on the top shelf, said number 8. Splendid, said number 5. I knew I could count on you. Number 5 came in from time to time to look at his special gold book. Number 8 learned that if he used tricks, he could remember things, without even bumping his head. It wasn't long before number 8 knew where every book in the library was. The other numbers used to think that number 8 was forgetful, but nobody remembers that now. The magic number 9. Number 9 lived in the land of numbers. He was a fisherman. He was the only number that didn't believe in magic. All the other numbers told him magic was real, but number 9 didn't believe them. There's no such thing as magic, he said. Watch this, said number 4, and he pulled a rabbit from his hat. Watch this, said number 6, and she made a coin disappear. Watch this, said number 3, and he made a flower squirt number 9 in the face. Number 9 just yawned. One day, number 9 was on his boat trying to catch a fish, when a great wave crashed down. When he came back to shore, his boat was badly damaged. There was a hole in the bottom. There was a rip in his sail, and all of the fish had been washed away. All the other numbers saw how upset he was. What's wrong? They asked. My ship is broken, and I lost all of my fish, he said sadly. I wish I were magic so that I could fix it. And he went off to go to sleep. The other numbers thought about it and decided to help number 9 that night. Number 6 built a wooden motor for the boat. Number 4 plugged up the hole in the boat. Number 3 spent all night in the water catching fish with bait he had made out of seaweed. The next day, number 9 woke up to check on his boat. Your boat is fixed, said number 6. It's magic. But there's no such thing as magic, said number 9. They all climbed onto the boat, except for number 4. He was hiding in the water with a pile of fish. Watch this, they said as they set the boat in the water. It did not sink. Watch this, they said as the motor made the boat move. Watch this, they said as number 4 started throwing fish into the boat from the water. How can this be? We are not sinking even though there's a hole. We are sailing even though my sail is torn. And fish are flying from the water onto my boat, said number 9. It must be magic. And it was the best kind of magic. That night they all had a great feast, and number 9 never doubted magic again. The Carless King Ten. King 10 ruled the land of numbers. He was the king of the land, so he thought that he was the most important number. His servants made him food, took him where he wanted to go, and did all of his work for him. They even washed his crown for him. He threw grand balls and feasts, and each night he dumped the trash into the water. Why shouldn't I dump my trash where I'd like? He said. I'm the king, so I don't have to care. One day number 3 came to him and said, My plants are dying. They need fresh water, but you filled the lake with your trash. To me, it matters not, said the king. Now be gone with you. A few days later, number 2 came to him and said, My berries will not grow. They need fresh water, and you filled the lake with your trash. It matters not, said the king. Now be gone with you. A few days later, number 9 came to him and said, I cannot fish any more. The lake is filled with your trash, and the fish cannot survive much longer. Why do you bother me with these things? It matters not, said the king. Now be gone with you, and don't come back. King 10 went on about his business. One day he called his servants over and asked, Where are all the flowers for my ball tonight? There are none left. We used to get our flowers from number 3, but they have stopped growing, they said. Well, where is all the food? He asked. There is none. The animals lived off of number 2's berries, and there are none for them to eat, they said. What about my feast of fish? He asked. The fish come from the lake, and number 9 can't fish there anymore, they said. His servants had no food for themselves, and they refused to do any more until they did. King 10 was going to have to go to the lake and clean it up. He had to ask number 3 to help him do the job. He had to ask number 2 to use his baskets to help pick up the trash. He had to ask number 9 to use his boat to go out into the lake. Even though it wasn't their fault, the numbers still agreed to help clean up the mess since it was their lake too. After a long day of cleaning, the lake was like new again. And ever since then, on that day, the king made new laws, which he had to follow too, to keep the land and the lake clean. Whenever someone asks him now why he takes such good care of the lake, he says, "It matters to me."